Oh,
Oh, another one. Another one to the right.
yeah, you got that one.
Ghost of Tabor is an early access VR game available on Steam and the Oculus Store. The game is essentially a VR Tarkov, with some of the game's promo material looking awfully similar. I'm playing this on the Oculus Quest 2 using the Oculus Link so I don't have to suffer playing over Wi-Fi. So to start with, the game has a nice tutorial explaining all the game's various mechanics, such as reloading different weapons, opening ammo boxes, ammo crafting, equipping attachments, and so on. A very useful tutorial to get used to the mechanics, as they are quite involved. Once completed, you get dropped into your hideout, a home base that you can walk around in, sort your gear, food and loot out in. You can also have a cat. With the game being a VR game, we all have our own preferences in how we like to play, and this game does come with a good amount of options. Smooth turning and snap turning. I personally always go with smooth turning, it's just easier for me. You can also hide your legs and various HUD options, which are nice as you can have a compass on your screen, but I just found it very annoying to have a floating compass in front of my eyes. Other options include movement with head or controllers, dead zones on the analog sticks, the option to use a virtual or your own physical stock, and other various calibration options. The game does also include a nice selection of visual options for recording, called the streamer option. I find this really neat to use and just have a mess around with, so if you're into streaming or recording footage, these options are definitely a bonus. The game does feel great in VR. Obviously it takes some getting used to with the different combinations of the grab and trigger buttons doing different things, but once you get used to it, it does feel great, and as always, reloading and just general weapon use feels badass in VR, even if you are someone in your pants crouching around in your bedroom. Sometimes the game can be quite finicky when attempting to grab certain items from the backpack, floor, or if it's quite a distance on a table, you'll try and grab something and you'll be pushed away from it. From a third person perspective, watching other players does look very bad. Guns will be inside them, dragging behind them. It can be quite difficult to tell if a player even has a gun or what they're doing.
I have to say, you look very cool right now. You're holding that galil with your forehead. Just
That's what you do as well. It's
hello. I see you. Bang, bang, bang.
like a turret. Things like being shot I do also find quite difficult to know when it's happened. Unless it's a massive bit of damage that makes you bleed or very low health, it can be quite difficult to go, oh shit, I was hit and I'll pull back now. You can check all your stats, health, food, water and weight on your watch. It can be quite difficult at times to see, depending on how well your headset is adjusted. The watch is also used to see raid timers and the locations of your extractions when they open. Shooting and general combat itself is very fun, as it is in most games. Just make sure you have adjusted any settings you need to make sure that aiming will be true to what you actually want to do. The game allows you to customize weapons and rigs. You can equip any arrangement of mag holders to your rig in any order you want, and you can also equip weapons with any compatible weapon attachments. All of this is very easy to do. You just hold the gun or rig in one hand and grab the attachment with the other, and once close enough, your hand will be super glued to the item and you can move around to your liking. You can adjust scopes and grips further up or down the rail too. Sometimes this can be quite finicky as you'll try and move the scope, but instead you'll grab the charging handle, but with enough persistence you can get it to work. So gameplay wise, it's similar to the likes of Tarkov, an extraction shooter. Your objective is to dive into one of the 4 maps currently in the game, loot, shoot, and try not to get clapped by AI or other players. Survival requirements such as thirst and hunger are also a problem, so bringing water and food with you or hoping you find some is something to keep in mind, as these feel like they drop relatively quick. So dying of thirst or hunger is just as much of a threat as being shot by Big Dave Plays VR. The maps themselves are quite nicely varied. So far we have a city map, an underground metro system which also has a sewer under that, a missile silo that is pitch black, and an outdoors map called Island. Each map has plenty of landmarks to explore with boxes and buildings to loot. They're all nicely detailed, but they are pretty bland sometimes, very empty. But that's the norm with VR games, even more so with maps this large, and the maps are large. Plenty of buildings, rooms, and verticality to work with and watch out for. Maps are littered with enemy NPCs, the Phoenix I think they're called, and on occasion they will also have bosses, who only seem to be there for me when I bring a water gun onto the map. The normal NPCs are fine enough, not super smart, they will just charge you or stand in a field shooting you, and most of the time you are able to react and take them down. Bosses on the other hand, will end you without a moment's notice. Aside from your home base and the extraction maps, the game's market area is also a place to visit. Weapons, food, bunker equipment, medicine and gear vendors are all found here, and it's okay for what it is. Feels very Gary's Mod roleplay server, just dudes stood around with different music playing in each area. To buy things from them, you just use the terminal next to them, so currently there's no interaction between you and the generic man. While you are in here, you're equipped with a scanner in your pistol holster. This is used to scan items and more importantly, scan a custom item. So if you have a vest, stick some mag holders on it, and now you can scan it as a custom item. So it'll arrive in your base as a full item when purchased, so you won't have to put the mags on individually. If you favourite this item, you can also buy it just straight from your base, which is very handy. Like Tarkov, you can level up these traders by completing missions. Thankfully, it's easier than finding 50 flash drives for Jaeger. Here it's just kill 15 Phoenix with an assault rifle. Some can be quite challenging as they require you to do it within a certain number of raids or lives. I do find that leveling up the trader is quite a task. It requires 25,000 rep and the easiest mission gives you about 1 to 1.2k rep. This would be less annoying if the tier 2 traders didn't have a certain item, the larger backpack. The starter backpack is pathetically small. You can fit maybe a Kit Kat bar in there. Starter weapon traders, they give you World War II weapons like the MP40 and the Bar LMG, also the SKS and Makarov. All very basic weapons, and while they do the job, they don't exactly stand up to the very large Chad boys roaming the lands. I just feel as though the trader equipment at the levels needs to be reworked slightly, or maybe change the rep requirements. I just feel for me, things in VR games need to be quicker, not slower than other normal games, as being in VR is quite an event. You're stood there with a giant TV strapped to your face, and doing that for hours on end to try and get a larger backpack is quite tiring. Or if you don't want to grind for hours on end, you could just buy the super edition of the game for 13 quid. The £13 being an upgrade from the base edition of the game. With this you get level 2 traders and a bunch of other stuff, which I would say significantly improves the game in terms of fun. Other DLC with the game includes the Uwu pack and the John Wick 3 pack, not too expensive, only costing around 4 quid each. Overall, Tabor is a very fun game. It's in early access, so it comes with all the normal warnings, maybe buggy, crashing, etc. But as it is right now, it's a fun extraction shooter. Guns are fun to use, wandering around the large maps, looting and shooting is great, and being shot at is quite exciting. The game is pretty cheap and goes on sale quite often, so if you're interested, I would say it is worth a look. Thank you for watching, and I will see you next time.